Good morning and welcome to Algebra 2AB. I just want to give you guys a quick little run through of what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to click on classwork up here. You could also click here. My screen does a little bit different than I think what yours does. So I assigned 6.1 review and practice problems for today. So I'm going to click there and it gives a brief description of what your assignment is for today. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out by doing 4 practice problems. I've attached a link. Let's see if we can find it. I'm going to click View Assignment. Nope, that's not what we want. I'm going back to Instructions. And if I scroll down, there it is. All right, so we can click here. And when you click there, I've made a Google document that has 4 practice review problems. So you can see one is addition, one is subtraction, and when I scroll down, we've got multiplication and division. So these are actually problems that we've already done, very similar examples. You can also refer to the 6.1 Operations of Functions Notes page, day 1. We also have, come on, there we go, the homework from 6.1, and I'm not showing you this just to show you answers. I'm showing you this to show you examples of different types of problems that we're doing. So hopefully you've already turned this page in. If not, bonus points. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be using these 4 practice problems of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. And I'm going to walk you through them all. Even though all the steps are listed here in this Google Doc that I've created for you, I'm also going to walk you through each of those problems on its separate sheet of paper. So I already kind of have a template created, and the reason I'm doing this is because if this doesn't make sense, then you can refer to what I'm actually doing on paper, okay? So I'm actually just going to be looking here at what I have on my paper, and I'm going to start with addition. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to see whether I'm adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. Because I see the plus in between my F and my H, I know that I'm using addition. So here, you'd see it's subtraction. Over here, it's going to be this little O, which kind of looks like a multiplication sign, but usually it's not filled in. On our page, here we go, number 8, it looks like that. So it is a little multiplication sign. And sometimes we actually see it as like a little, where is it? I'm not seeing it. I'll show you if we get to one like that. So for now, just know that when we're multiplying, it looks like that. And when we're dividing, it looks like this. So the first one we're going to start with is addition. And this can be read as F plus H of X. So don't get confused by what this really means. It just means that if I have F here, I'm going to look at what F equals. F equals 4X plus 2. Kind of like substitution. So F, in F's place, I'm going to write 4X plus 2. Now because this is a plus sign, I'm also going to keep this a plus sign. My H, oopsies, that's a funky looking little arrow. My H is equal to this stuff. So I'm going to write minus 3x plus 3. I'm going to put these in parentheses just so I can remember that F equals this stuff and H equals this stuff. So now what I need to do is, now that I've added F plus H, I need to combine my like terms. My 4 has X and my negative 3 has X. So I'm going to combine those two. If I have 4X minus 3X, and this part still stays the same, then I take my plus 2 and my plus 3, and I write 2 plus 3. I can then combine my like terms. So 4x minus 3x equals 1x. Can I write just x? Sure. Doesn't matter. Can I put the 1? Sure. Whichever works best for you. And then we're going to add our 2 and our 3, and I get 5. So if you look over at the example here, I have 1x plus 5. And you can see that I added in my little notes here that you're going to add f and h and that you combine your like terms. And I showed you each of those steps. So if it doesn't make sense here, follow me along here. Okay? So that was the first example of addition. And next we're going to take a look at subtraction. So just like how we have it here in our Google Doc, I'm going to show you how to go through each of those steps on paper. Same thing as addition, and what I actually did for you guys, I don't know if you can tell right off the bat, but each of these F and H functions, they're all the same. The reason I did that was so that you could see the difference between addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, but using the same numbers. Okay, so we're going to take a look at subtraction next, and my value of F is 4x plus 2, so I'm going to write 4x plus 2. Now, because this is a minus sign here, I'm going to write minus. And my value of H is going to be represented by negative 3 plus 3. I'm going to put these in parentheses just like how I did over here, so I can remember that those guys go together. But the next part is a little bit tricky. So if you look over on our Google Doc, it says here to subtract f of x and h of x. So that means I need to subtract this one from this one, but there's a thing that I have to do before that. I need to distribute my invisible 1. So if you see here, I wrote distribute invisible negative 1. That is what's right here. We can draw our invisible negative 1, and now I'm going to distribute here and here. So my 4x plus 2 stays the same. And that's a minus. Wait, nope. I was going to say that's a minus, so this is a minus down here, but that is not true. I'm taking my negative 1, and I'm distributing it to my negative 3. 2 negatives equal, you got it, a positive. And then 1 times 3 is 3. And then I can multiply my negative 1 by my 3 here. Negative times positive is a negative. 1 times 3 is 3. So now, what can I do? I can combine like terms. So I feel like there should be an x here. There should be an x here. X, we need a little x here. We forgot that. That's okay. That's why we check our work. Okay. Did I forget that in the problem? Nope. Okay, the Google Doc is good. It has our x. So now I've got 4x plus 3x and 4x plus 3x. These guys I'm going to combine. And my 2, I have a positive 2, and I have a negative 3. So I'm going to combine these guys, and I'm going to combine these two. So 4x and 3x gives me 7x. And if I have 2 and I take away 3, I'm left with negative 1. I guess I could have circled my answer over here. That's my final answer. This is my final answer over here. And if we take a peek at our Google Doc, we have 7x minus 1. All right. Hopefully this is just a review for you guys. 2 more different types of problems, 1 multiplication, 1 division, and then you can get set on solving some of your homework. Okay? Like I said, we've got 4 examples here. We're going to have 4 examples, or 4 practice problems for your homework. Okay? So for multiplication, we're going to set it up very similar to addition, subtraction. The only difference is we're multiplying. So I'm going to take my, oopsies, making sure you guys can see here. I'm going to take my value of f, which is 4x plus 2. I'm going to put it in parentheses, and I'm going to multiply it by my value of h, which is a negative 3x plus 3. And you could either leave it like that or just leave it as 4x plus 2 in parentheses and negative 3x plus 3 parentheses. Do I have to write out all those steps? Absolutely not. I just do it so that way you can actually see where my work is coming from and what it means. So I usually take the first one, the 4x plus 2, and I put it on top. It's okay if you put it on the side. Doesn't matter which one comes first. I just always take that first set of parentheses and I put it on top. So I have a 4x here and a 2 here. We've got two terms here, 4x and positive 2. 4x goes in the first box, or above the first box, and my positive 2 goes above the second box. Negative 3x and 3, I've got two terms here. Negative 3x goes here, and positive 3 goes here. Hopefully, again, that's just a review for you guys. Now I need to multiply my f and h. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3x times 4x. That gives me 12x squared. Remember here, this is where we're multiplying. Then we combine like terms. So we've got 3 times 2 is 3 times 2 is 6, but don't forget about your x. Here I've got 3 times 4 is 12, and I also have an x. And 3 times 2 is 6. So now we have to combine our like terms. So the first thing we did was multiply. Then combine like terms. Okay, so this is the only one with x to the second power. So I'm going to write 12x to the second power. That one's done. And these both have x's. I have 12x and 6x. I believe one of these should be negative. Oh, yep, this one's negative. Here we go. Negative 3. So that should actually be a negative 6x. That's why we always check our work. So now I have a positive 12x minus the 6x. And remember, these two are like terms. This one didn't have any other x squared. These both have x. So I'm going to combine those two. And then I have a positive 6, which is this guy right here. So I just rewrote that over here. So I'm going to combine these two. This one's already done, so it's going to stay the same, 12x to the second. And here I have 12x minus 6x. 12 minus 6 is 6, and that's a positive 6 because I have more positive numbers than I have negative. So I have a positive 6x plus 6. That stays the same. And there you have it. You have 12x to the second plus 6x plus 6. There is our final answer. All right, and if we go over here, you guys will see the same little template that I've created in our Google Doc. Yep, negative 12. I didn't do that. That's again why we check our work. Negative 12 x squared. Okay, so that's how we got our first example of multiplication. And then if we move over to division, I'm going to scroll up just a bit so that way you can see. There it is. Division, find each function. All right, so this one's a little bit different, maybe a tiny bit more work, or maybe just a little bit different way to work out your problem, but actually overall very easy. So we've got f on the top, h on the bottom. This one is read f divided by h of x. This one is f times h of x, or f multiplied by h of x, whereas this one was f plus h of x, and this one is f minus h of x. So down here, we're just dividing. So hopefully you can tell the difference between the 4 types of problems by now. And since this is my f and this is my f, my value of f goes on the top. I've got 4x plus 2 divided by my value of h, which, looking up here, is negative 3x plus 3. This is super goofy, looking at my phone, making sure you guys can see everything, and writing here and looking over there. Super goofy, but it's okay. We got this. We'll get through it. All right, so as soon as we set up our top and our bottom, we got to look to make sure that we factored out any GCFs. What I mean by that is 4 and 2 can both be divided by 2. So that means I can pull a 2 out of the top. And when I do that, 2 times what equals 4x? 2 times 2x equals 4x. That's a plus, so this is a plus. And 2 times what gives me a positive 2? A 1. 2 times 1 gives me a positive 2. I'm going to divide And this part's a little goofy. Since this stuff up here is positive, I'm going to make the stuff on the bottom also positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out, and I actually made these examples up so they don't always look the prettiest. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pull out a 3. And I have to think, 3 times what gives me, I think I messed this up. Darn it. Okay. That's okay. We're just going to go with it. So here I have a negative 3x and a plus 3. Since I have a 3 here and a 3 here, I'm going to pull out a 3 here. So 3 and 3 both divide by 3, right? So I'm left with if I did, let's see, how do I say this? If I pull out a positive 3 here, I'm left with a negative 1x plus 1, right? I think just because we don't want a negative x over here, I'm actually going to make this a negative 3. So I'm going to pull out a negative 3 here. And if I do negative 3 times a positive 1x, that still gives me the negative 3x. So that works. And even though this is a plus, sometimes this is the same thing, sometimes it's not. For this example, it's not. Because I pulled out a negative 3 here, this is going to turn into a negative 1 because 2 negatives would equal a positive. Like I said, I made this problem up. I was hoping that it was going to work out so that both were positive on the top and bottom, but it doesn't. That's okay. So that just means that I need to do what? Well, I need to do one final thing before I find my final answer. So yes, essentially this is simplified and we've kind of like reduced the fraction. Remember, you don't need the 1 in front of the x. Can we have it? Yeah, sure. It doesn't matter either way. So this would essentially be most of your final answer. With division, we have something that's called a restriction, and it's only with division. And I'm going to switch over to the Google Doc really quick because it'll make more sense looking on it here. So whenever we have a set of parentheses on the bottom, and that's actually supposed to be a minus because I set that up wrong, and I'm not re-recording this entire video. Sorry, 17 minutes in, not re-recording. Welcome to day 1, guys. Okay, so since we have in parentheses here an x minus 1 on the bottom, when we talk about having restrictions, that means that we have to figure out if that value of x was a number, what would that x have to be in order to get 0 on the bottom? We cannot ever have 0 on the bottom. So since this is a negative 1, down here it says with division, when there's a set of parentheses on the bottom, just like what we have right here, you have to list any restrictions. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that set of parentheses that's on the bottom. Oh, I just drew on my screen. And I'm going to set it equal to 0. So down here I said set the parentheses equal to 0. So I have x plus 1 equals 0. Now we have to solve for x. So imagine that little line that kind of separates both sides of the equal sign. And I'm going to subtract 1 on both sides. Okay? When I do that, I get x equals a negative 1. So subtract 1 here. If I do it on one side, I do it on the other side. So the 1's go away, and I'm left with x equals negative 1. So because x equals negative 1, my very final last step is to say that x cannot equal a negative 1. Because if x equals a negative 1, that means I'm going to get 0 on the bottom, and that is the restriction. You cannot have x equal to negative 1. You can't have x equals negative 1 on the bottom because then you would get 0 here. So yes, this is kind of like my final answer, but this is ultimately the very last step that you have to state. You have to state the restrictions. The restriction is what can x not equal. Here, x cannot equal a negative 1. So I'm going to jump back over here really quick. Hopefully that made sense to you guys. So here I have x, remember you can have your invisible 1, doesn't matter, still equals the same thing, minus 1 equals 0. So I set it equal to 0, add 1 to both sides. Those cancel out. And here, because this was a -1 over there on my Google Doc, I had to change this to a negative. So that means over here, I would have a minus, and then up here, I would have a minus, and then down here, these guys would be pluses. Plus. So now solve. So here, it would say add 1 on both sides, and when we do that, we've got a +1 and +1 down here. So, oops, sorry, you guys weren't even looking at the screen. So because x equals +1, because x equals a +1, x cannot equal a +1. That is our restriction. So I'm going to write this. Nope. I'm going to go down a little bit. Oh, it's fuzzy. Here we go. This. Oh, wait, how about this? This is the restriction. X cannot equal 1. And there you have it, guys. Oh, that's 6.1, day 1 review. Hopefully that makes sense. And don't forget, you've got to cross that out when you write your final answer. That is your restriction. You guys have 4 problems. So if you continue to scroll down on your Google Doc, you will be able to see the 4 problems that I've prepared for you guys. Very similar type problems. And again, if you need something to refer back to, you can look at your 6.1 notes, and if you still have it, the 6.1 homework assignment. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and just remember, you've got to submit these problems to Mrs. Bayer and I through our Google Classroom. So when you have the homework problems finished, you can either write them on a separate sheet of paper or print this out and take a picture of it, and you can submit it to us. Thanks so much, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye!